This paper is co-authored with Professor Song at Monash University in Malaysia. And today I'll try to briefly explain motivation and some stylized facts about fertility, marriage, and some social and economic changes in Korea, and discuss the research objective and the possible contributions of this study. And then I'll present two major results, one based on the microdata, and the other is on the macroeconomic models. I'll make it clear about what I did using two different methodologies. So basically, based on the microdata, we'll find out some stylized facts, especially related to the determinants of marriage and childbirth in Korea, and then using that finding to build the structural macro model and try to quantify the impact of social and economic changes on fertility and marriage rate, as well as the policy initiatives impact on marriage and fertility. Okay, so what really happened to fertility in Korea is very significantly low at this moment. It's 0.72 in 2023, so the lowest in the world. And it was 1.76 30 years ago, but has been continuous decline. So what happened during this economic, very rapid economic development? Korea is well known for this economic, very successful economic achievement. Then what happened in this demographic changes? If we look at the data, there are two phenomena happening together. One is the lower marriage rate. So data here, I will discuss this data in details. The percentage of never married individuals aged 25, between 25 and 49 increased from about 14% in 1990 to 40% in 2020. They may remain unmarried or they may marry later, but anyway, during this period, so many people are not just remain unmarried in recent years. And also the average number of children born to the married women declined from 3 in 1990 to 2.1. So these are the two phenomena combined together. There are less married people and smaller number of children from the married couples. So these are the data. If you look at the recent trend in fertility rate, this total fertility rate, I'm sure you are familiar with this term. This is basically it's a calculated measures. One woman can have children during her lifetime. So basically, it used to be very high in the 1970s and then declined significantly up to the 1990s. That part I'll not focus on because this is a very well-known phenomenon common to every country. When income increased and then mortality declined, health improved, number of children are declined eventually. But what happened to Korea is in 1990, it was around 1.7 and then declined 1.2 and then recent 5 years up to the 0.7. So this significant decline over the one generation to the extremely low level is very interesting. So between 1990 and 2020, what happened? We look at the right-hand side figure, here showing the percentage of never married by age groups. So this red line shows the percentage of never married for the age group between 25 and 29. So among these people in 1990, you can see about 40% are not married. But now almost 90% are not married. So between 25 and 29, we cannot find out anyone is married. So they are just delayed marriage or they just decide not to marry over their lifetime. It's significant. Or they may be married. So if you look at another age group between age 30 and 34, there's black lines below this red line. Well, even among these people, about 60% are unmarried. So it's the significant decline in marriage rate in Korea. So one of the reasons why I started this project is that I try to focus on the marriage rate. So why people are not married nowadays? I'm married very successfully, but nowadays young people cannot marry. So this is one. Okay. So there are another data you can see that even among the married people, there are about 14% of married couples who do not have any children. So significant increase in those couples who do not have children. And also on average, number of children per marriage, as I discussed, declined from the 3 in 1990 to 2.1 in 2020. So that all happened together. Okay. Then we are trying to find out the cause of these declines in the marriage rate and fertility in Korea, which would be very severe, even compared to any other countries, including Japan. Japan is now about 1.2. So why? What happened? So of course, we need to find out the possible causes from some concurrent trend that have happened in Korea during this same period. So focus from the 1990s. Let's say, okay, first, rising incomes. Korea's income growth rate is a little bit higher. So income increase. I'll explain briefly on the theory. But income increase, you may prefer usually to have more children, but sometimes your wage is increasing. So opportunity cost is also increasing. So you may want to have lower your demand for children because children are very expensive goods. So you want to reduce the number of children. Or increase in the marriage cost. Here, marriage cost is in Korean society, because here, this part I don't need to explain very well here in Japan, because non-marital wealth is very rare. So people should be married to have children. Only less than 4% of children are born outside marriage in Korea. So because marriage is the first step to have a baby in Korean society. So then getting married is quite expensive. You need to find out right spouse. So nowadays it's more difficult, and wedding cost is very high, especially housing. I can explain this. Housing cost is very high in Korea, especially in the large cities. And the cost of child rearing and education is also very high. And another one is I'll focus in this presentation is the improvement in the female education. Females, especially college education, expanded very rapidly during this period, and that has some impact on the fertility rate as well as the marriage rate. And to that, of course, obviously, if females go to the college during the period of they attend college, they do not have children. So basically, the number of children would be smaller decline. And also, these educated women tend to participate more in the labor markets. So when they participate in the labor markets, it's more difficult to have a balance between the work and life. So that's decline in the number of children. And another important thing is the very persistent traditional cultural norms in the Korean society. Unequal division of household labor. So females are primarily responsible for household work. That gives an additional burden for the females, especially for educated women when they make a decision on the marriage, because they don't want to get into this traditional cultural setting, which will give more burden on them. And then also there are labor market issues, because in the labor markets, very inflexible work arrangement. So it's the females, once they got married, and then whether they could continue to get the job is very difficult. And now it has been changing. Policies continue to operate it, but during the 90s and 2000s, it was very difficult to balance this work and life. So usually they quit the job when they got married or they get a baby. This is called the M-shaped labor market participation. I'll show the data. And also stigma surrounding non-marital child bearing. So this I just explained. That's very, very common in Korea. You don't know, because the family is really opposed having a child without the formal marriage. So that's another another cultural issues. And women's preference for education, homogamy and hypergamy, has been changed, the trend a little bit changing, but this gender imbalance in terms of preference of their spouses are quite different because the females would like to, especially educated females, college educated females, would like to have a spouse with at least the same level of education. They don't want to get married to the male without college education. How about males? Males usually less care about the education level of their spouse, female spouse. Sometimes they just prefer cooking or other things rather than the education level. So that's the cultural setting here. So these are all combined together. I'm not the first one emphasizing these factors. Oh, they were influenced marriage and childbearing in Korea. But here the question is that can you prove which factor is the most important in determining especially this declining the fertility and marriage rate in Korean society over the past 30 years among these factors? We need some empirical investigation, and quantify the impact is more complicated. For example, okay, we believe housing cost is very, very important factor in determining the marriage rate, because the Korean system is usually they prefer to at least have an apartment to live together for the newly married couples. Then, if government gave the subsidy for this apartment, especially for these newly married couples, that would increase the marriage rate, fertility rate. We need to quantify. Otherwise, government can spend a huge amount of money and then only increase very small number of increase in the marriage rate. So this quantification in terms of the designing policy is very important, because without knowing these policies is sometimes very difficult. Of course, very ideally, if you could do some experiment, random experiment or something, but this is the marriage and fertility, it's very hard to do a real experiment. So we try to look at the existing data, micro level data, and then trying to measure what kind of the policies were most important for this determining marriage and fertility rate in Korea, and also trying to build the structural model and do the simulation, and then trying to do this is what economists are doing. Sometimes people think this is not the right way to really find out the impact, but this is maybe best way to do. So, okay, so I start to show some data, and then you relate to this part. Prove that. I understand that the chair said that after 75 minutes you can ask questions, but if you want me to clarify anything, please ask questions. You can interrupt me anytime. So quickly on the enrollment rate, in the 1990s, only 20% of college, so the high school graduate went to the college in Korea. Women's only 20%. In 20 years later, almost 80% went. So it's still 80%. So now it's almost 80% going to college. Significant increase. This is gross enrollment rate. So maybe
4-year college.
No, including junior and 4 years college. Whenever I say college is junior, today I'm including 2-year college, 3-year college, and 4-year college, and the postgraduate. So I just say, but sometimes I show the disaggregate data, but I'm trying to divide the whole population into two groups: the non-college educated, college educated, including junior college. I show that there are not very big difference between junior college versus 4-year college in terms of the marriage rate and fertility rate. And then, okay, they educated at college, and then what happened? They would like to stay in the labor market. If you look at the right, I only focus on the females. Right inside graph, you can see chart. You can see that this dotted line is the 2000. So you don't have a data in the 1990s. 2000 census compared to the 2000 census, 2023. you can see increase in the employment rate, especially early period. So people who graduate college means the age between the 25 and 30s, they got the job and they are in the labor market. But as you can notice that if you are familiar with this data, you already be aware of that. There is a significant gap between male and female, even though male's employment rate was basically the same over the 30 years. And then female has increased, but significant gaps. The males dominate in the labor market. And then even though it has increased, as you can see, it shows the M shape, still M shape. So it's when they are age in 30s, they got married or they got babies, they usually get out of the labor market. They cannot stay in the labor market, so they just get out and then they try to go back to the labor market after they send their kids to the private schools. So this is the current situation. So this kind of labor market behavior would have an impact on the fertility rate and marriage rate. Okay. So, I emphasize this increase in the education for females and then the labor market behavior. Okay, I look at the two censuses, 1990 and 2020. We have a 10-year census. This table looks very complicated, but this is an important table, spending a lot of times. So if we look at this 1990 data and then focus on the marriage rate here, women aged 25 and 49, these groups, what happened marriage rate? Here, marriage rates are quite diverse across the different education levels. You can first notice that on average, 92% were married in 1990. So 92.1. And then if we go below the by education level, disaggregate data, primary or less, so 98% were married. Lower secondary, 97%. Higher secondary, 89%, junior college, 77%, and the university and higher, 80%. So quite similar. Okay, so there are big difference between educated females and less educated females in terms of the marriage rate. So, but in 1990, marriage rate was, even though university educated females, their marriage rate was only 80%, or average marriage rate for total population was 92%. Why? You can see the first column, share of population, ages 25 and 49, is females. Okay. Junior college was only 2.5%. University of Ohio was the 9.5%. It's not surprising. As I said, 1990, these young females started to go to the college. The enrollment rate only 20%. Before that was very small. So only very small number of females went to the college. So if we take an average, it's 92% marriage rate. Okay. Then 2020, what happened? Okay, you can see the still very difference across the educational groups. And then, even though the number, primary and lower secondary, was higher than 90%, average was only 69%. Why? Junior college and university were higher. Okay, their numbers are lower than the 1990, 69% and 60%. But more than that, the percentage has changed significantly. Junior college graduates are now 24%. University graduates are now 48%. So there's significant increase in the college education, and then these groups have lower marriage rate. So that's why marriage rate declined on average significantly. And even college educated groups, the marriage rate declined 80% from 80% to 60%. So there are two things are going on in terms of marriage rate. One is the so-called between group effect. Between groups, there are share change. Another one is the within group effect. In the same group, marriage rate decline. Here, between group effect explains about 2/3. Within group explains 1/3. So that's why I said, okay, women's educational expansion played a very important role in determining marriage rate decline in South Korea because they got college education and their marriage rate were lower. So also in this within group decline. Okay, you can also look at this average number of children. That has also declined from the 3 to 2.1 in 2020. And then the number is also different, but it's not significantly different compared to the marriage rate. If we look at the higher secondary and University of Higher, their numbers are quite similar. So but this primary or less groups numbers quite decline, and then the share decline. So that's the significant impact on the South Korea's marriage rate decline. Okay, so now one hypothesis at this moment I could set up to explain the Korea's fertility rate decline. I would say, okay, marriage rate decline was the first primary cause for fertility rate decline over this period. And then marriage rate decline is mostly coming from these college-educated women. Okay, college-educated women decide not to marry. Why? Well, something happened in the labor market too. So in the labor markets, labor force participation rate, you can see the women, total 56%. That's the labor market participation rate. University educated women participation rate is 70%. So they are participating in the labor markets more. And then there are some gender issues, wage inequality, also the job difference. If you look at the right-hand side in these tables, females are mostly in the service sectors, like the wholesale and retail trade, and then education, health, and social work. And then many of them are working as a part-time. So it's a job characteristics are different. So there are issues. So here the point is that if you are college educated, if you are working as a professional, full-time professional, then your opportunity is very rare in the Korean labor markets. And then if you want to stay in the same jobs, you may just decide not to be married, or you will delay your marriage until you will get the permanent position. Okay, that's what is happening in Korea. There are many descriptive explanations what really happened in the Korean labor market, especially females. But maybe this audience is much easier to understand these kind of things because there are greater similarity between Japan and Korea. Maybe other countries are more difficult to understand what's really going on. Okay. And then, okay, but many other countries, is household jobs, household cares, divided equally between male and females. That's not true. And well, this is not really explained causality, but this is from the Claudia Goldin's American Economic Association presidential address. She's showing this chart and explaining that, okay, the lower fertility rate in Korea is a very surprising. And then she explained that this basically coming from this gender inequality in household. But I would say this Korea is maybe exceptionally low, and then we are at least better than Japan in this data. But that's anyway, this is the big issue, of course, in Korea, because these females need to take care of their children primarily, so they really hesitant to have kids, but especially they are participating in the labor markets. The issue. Okay. I want to explain these cost issues because in Korea, what happened is the economy has expanded very rapidly. Per capita income increased significantly, but other prices also increased. So the cost of family formation has increased significantly. One is the housing. So Korea's case, in the other countries, if you want to have a house to live after your marriage, you may pay the monthly rent and then buy the house or rent a house, or you can buy the apartment. For this case, we call jeonse system. The system is that you may not be able to buy the apartment, especially metropolitan cities, but you need to pay at least half of the total apartment price to secure long-term contract. So this kind of phenomenon is now it has changed into the more monthly rent system, but still this is a dominating form. So if housing price is very high in your area, you will be very reluctant to get married. But we cannot live without home. That's the way of the marriage. So how you can prove this one? This chart you cannot see. This is very small character, but this is the 31 regions in Korea, including Seoul, Seongnam, Busan, and those metropolitan cities, and then large cities, overpopulation, 500,000. And then I got this data and then trying to show this scatter plot. Because you care about the housing price nearby your job. Okay, there are one exception. You can see that that's called Sejong. The one point is actually apartment price is slightly high, but fertility rate is also very high. This Sejong is the administrative special capital. We have constructed this new capital, and then most of them are public servants. So these people's jobs secure, and the child care facilities are much better in the city. So their fertility rate is slightly high. So take out this outlier, and then you can see very clear negative slope. Negative slope means, okay, apartment price is high on average, then your fertility rate is lower. The Seoul is particularly lower, and then other southern western cities and basically the high. So this chart at least hints that people care about the housing cost when they decide to get married or not. So without house, they cannot get married. Or this is the real issue. People, sometimes parents are worried about supporting their children's marriage because the housing price is very high in Korea. And then the right-hand side is the child private education cost. In Korea, basically public education is free. But many parents are sending their kids for private education, like English, computer, and mathematics, and science. Nowadays, everything, music, and it's a very well-known phenomenon in Korea. And then you can also see the very negative slope. So private education cost is high in Seoul area, and then fertility rate is low. When the child education is low, their fertility rate is high. So there are some issues related to this one. So, okay, based on these observations, what I'm trying to do, the objective here is, of course, I want to find out the key factors behind the declining marriage and fertility rate in Korea using both micro-level data and structural macroeconomic models. Using micro-data analysis, I want to identify key factors influencing forced marriage and childbirth decisions. I'm focusing on only forced marriage. This longitudinal data, and the macroeconomic model analysis. I developed on overlapping generation model. I explained that, and then trying to integrate stylus effect, the findings from the micro-level data analysis, and then evaluated the impact of policy on initiative and investigate how shifting in economic conditions. So sometimes this kind of simulation helps, even though we think some policies are very important, some policies may have some positive impact on the fertility, but significant negative impact on the economic growth. We support something, but the fertility rate increased, but your economy declined. So you need a macroeconomic model to evaluate the overall impact of policy. I hope this is clear. Okay, so what are the contributions of this study? You may hear a lot of things about Korea's marriage rate decline and the fertility rate decline. Why Korea fertility rate is very low in the newspapers and the magazines saying, oh, private education cost is very high, so they don't want to have a kids, or some things that the housing price is very high. But I didn't see many papers actually emphasize this college-educated women's decision on marriage rate. Actually, not very. I've seen actually this micro-level data analysis because the data was limited, and also macroeconomic modeling was also not not many papers. The several papers just came out because this was a very important phenomenon. Over the last year, there are very significant contributions in this area. So basically, first contribution is I'm trying to show the micro level data analysis and then combine the structural model. And the structural model, I'm trying to show that there's some advance compared to the existing literature. So for example, there are two papers. One is the Kim et al. Year 2024, and then Myung et al. 2021. So Kim's paper is the American Economic Review, and Myung's paper was the Journal of European Economic Association. So it's a very good journals. They are very good modeling. And then my model is trying to improve a little bit, but not also in some combining really all kinds of aspects is very difficult. But I'm trying to emphasize gender difference and then basically dynamic models. I'm trying to focus on some macroeconomic impact. And then I quantify the impact of key policy initiatives. So I want to see the government subsidy, how much it will help to increase the fertility rate, for example. And then I want to do some historical counterfactual experiment. Let's say the Korea's income was not increased over time. Korean females didn't go to the college, and then gender norms have not changed. Then what would happen to the fertility and marriage rate? So perhaps the fertility rate would be very high in the time if we go back to the history. So in terms of the literature, there are quite theoretical papers emphasizing that, okay, gender is important, economic variables are important, also social norms, social variables are important. So there are three well-known models here: child quantity and quality trade-off. So you may prefer to have a smaller number of children, but with educate them to the more. So this kind of quality and quantity issues. And models time cost. So models times is limited. Models can optimize their times when they decide to have how many children they have. And family career compatibility, so it depends on which society you live. It would be very difficult to balance family and career aspirations, especially for highly educated females. Then they would not be married or they would not have children. Okay, so there are some empirical studies, many empirical studies. I'll explain one by one. So first, the income impact is the ambiguous because the income increase, purely income increase, will have higher demand for increased demand for children. But as I said, wage is increasing, opportunity cost is increasing. If you spend more time for your child care, your income will decline. So they are, especially females, opportunity cost is increasing. Of course, other costs are here: rising child rearing and education expenses combined with soaring housing prices make marriage and child rearing less affordable. This was many Korean papers of Korean economy actually address these issues. Women's education. Higher education basically provide great economic opportunity for females. So they can have higher earnings. So they could afford marriage. Okay, now I can choose the spouse. I have money, I have big good jobs, and child rearing. Okay, I have financing to afford my child. But opportunity cost, especially if you cannot really combine your family and your career, higher education may discourage you from having marriage and children. And also, higher education, people point out, enhances awareness of child rearing quality. So the higher education makes them, okay, I want to have a less number of children, good quality children, for example. I will send them. Okay, and another here, also associative weighting and gender asymmetrical preference. This is basically education homogamy and hypergamy because they want to highly educated women trying to find out the same level of spouse, so their opportunities different. Okay, so this negative association between women's education and fertility are pointed out several papers, and traditional gender norms I just explained, unequal household labor division, and the conflict between career aspiration and traditional stigma. surrounding non-marital child rate. I already explained. Okay, let me now move to the microdata analysis. It's supporting some hypotheses and then going to structural models. Okay, first on micro level data.
Let me confirm one thing. So I'm wondering about the distribution, about the decline in marriage rate and the fertility rate. Is it like happen in all of the regions in South Korea, or is it only happen in well-developed cities such as Seoul?
Everywhere.
Everywhere.
Everywhere. So it's because let's say everywhere female education has increased, and then every cost has increased. Of course, there is a disproportional. Maybe Seoul area marriage rate was a little bit lower,
This
but
is
marriage
all over South Korea.
Okay, so this data is I will just briefly explain. This data exists from the 1998 to 2022. We cover all 5,000 urban households, 13,317 members, and so for marriage analysis, we sample include about 7,600 unmarried individuals, because you want to find out determinant of marriage, so you need to focus on the unmarried individuals, and then they will get married over time. This data is truncated in the right-hand side. So here, what I'm saying is that we don't know, because after 2022, they will get married. So we need some kind of empirical technique, because the data is only 22. So 22. So one person's age is 35, maybe get married at 36, so we don't know. But this kind of issues are empirical technique issues. But anyway, this survey covers a large number of people. And then among these married couples, over more than 2,100 individuals have a child, first child. So we can find out some determinant, because this data has all kinds of information about individuals and each household, including the education and other things. Okay, so this one is basically showing that some cohort. So we divide into the 10 cohort among here. The earlier born cohort was between 1954 and 1958. These people are here in the end, very small amount, because they are already old. So we don't need to care about these people. These people in the marriage decisions, this is very old people. So the last three cohort, earlier born cohort, older cohort, we delete them because they are already over age 35. So we delete them. So we focus on the sixth cohort, sixth cohort, and then we divide in the young cohort and old cohort sometimes. So this is called the discrete time hazard model. That means that you are at the start as unmarried, and over time you will decide whether married or unmarried, married or unmarried. And then your age is increasing, your education is given, already college educated or not, or you may attend the college, because we focus on the male or female age 18 over. So at age 18, you can be married. That's legally. And then we also have some parents' characteristics, especially whether parents has its own home or not. Sometimes they live together with parents. And also we got some regional level information, apartment price, and then how many college educated men are available for women in that area. Because you need to find out your spouse with at least the same level of education. So this kind of information we compiled and then generated and then tried to estimate this one. This regression is so complicated. So, but let me just focus on a few variables. For example, get the income. So this variable is the income. Sometimes you put the lagged variable, means at least control endogeneity, and then some regional variable has the low endogenous concerns because the data is the individual, regional impact. Okay, here, for example, income is positive. So if you have a higher income, you'll get married, controlling all other things. Without money, you cannot be married. It's not surprising. And then university educated or junior college educated. Interesting, especially young females. Here the males are positive. So if we are highly educated, you have a better chance to get married. But highly educated, college educated females, the chance is lower, as I explained. So it's much more difficult. Or this is maybe by the certain factors, or this is association, maybe they voluntarily decide not to get married or involuntarily. And also here, you can see the apartment price is negative for females, strong negative. So if apartment price is high, females will discourage from getting married. And parents or homeowner is important for males. So male in Korea may decide to live together with parents, but not females. Females do not live together. I don't know, yeah, females parents do not live together with males. The male dominant.
It's not changing.
Oh, it's changing.
It's really current.
Yeah, it's changing. That's exactly. Yes. So actually here, that's why the old and young, actually it is changed. In the old generation here old generation is currently age over 40. This was very significant, but now it's significant. No one is living together with the parents. That's the happening. So at least this data confirms some predictions. We can actually use this coefficient to quantify the impact, but anyway, that's not the way we are doing. We are happy to see also this ratio of college educated women to men. So if there are too many college educated women, the marriage possibility will decline significantly. But this is showing the here. Okay. So actually for this many married women, college educated women prefer to go to the metropolitan city like Seoul to get married because you can find more available college educated.
In Korea, there is no one-child policy.
No.
Never.
Never have any one-child policy. But
So voluntary one child.
voluntarily, sometimes government really push to decrease number of children, but up to the two, never advertised that they should have one child. But now it's less than one child, as you can see. It's naturally happen. So now it's government spending a lot of money to increase the fertility. Okay, let me go to the first marriage, the major findings here. So as I explained, this is the several things for women. Higher education decreases marriage probability, especially in younger cohort. That's during the past 30 years that I'm explaining. And the income and employment, high incomes increase marriage, but being employed, I didn't show that, but it is negatively associated. Housing cost is a very significant impact on the marriage decision, and the ratio of college educated women to men is also important. So because of these cultural variables. Okay. First, childbirth. Okay, this formula is similar. This is known as survival model. And then there are several factors here. Okay, then I want to just move to the major results. Here, only females, because childbirth is basically we look at only females. Also very difficult to identify males. So females here, if you look, first very important one is the employment, strong negative. So if females have a job, if you participate in the labor market, they have a lower probability of childbirth. So employment opportunity is very important to them. And then because this is the voluntary decision or involuntary decision, because the Korean system is as I explained, the gender inequality in the household and in the workplace made them to decide not to have children. But this was basically confirmed here, strongly confirmed. And here, university is actually have a positive impact of the childbirth, but among the young cohort is not. So maybe they delayed the childbirth, but they will come married, they would like to have children, but now they no impact. So actually, when I showed the table, there is no big difference in terms of the number of child for married college educated women over the 30 years. And their income is not significant. So females' income is not have any impact on their decision on childbirth. Why? Because they are all are married and they are live together in their house. So family income, household income is a very strong positive. So family income is important. Family income is including female income. So family income is an important factor in determining the childbirth. And here, region-specific education cost. Education is strong negative. So if you leave certain regions and then you are worried about educating your children, you may not have children. This is easily confirmed in Korea because there are many surveys asking the newly married couples whether you have children or not, and then they will say, "Oh, we may not have children," and then why? What are your major factors? So number one is number two, number three, education cost. So also many papers actually emphasize this because this private education cost, private education is quite prevailing phenomenon in East Asian society, Japan, Korea, China, and Taiwan, and Singapore. So the Western scholars usually look at this. Okay, these countries strong competition among the children, maybe too much competition to go to the elite college. And then that makes them, especially poor household, discourage those people not to have a baby. So they emphasize that. But I agree, but we don't know, I mean, how much that is important actually. Maybe it may have some impact on but usually my counter argument is that was even 30 years ago, it was the same in Korea. Even 40 years ago, it's a strong competition among the children to go to the elite college. So it has been always. So I cannot really say that this was really primary cause of the fertility decline over the last 30 years. Last 30 years, basically something happened in terms of the characteristics of parents. Parents, they are more highly educated. They aspire their good careers. They want to work in the labor markets. They were looking for work and life balance. They are looking for good child care and good education system. And then the society actually does not provide that. Okay, now I don't have a child. So this one is now happening. Okay, this one is the basically summarizing the result. And okay, now I'll spend some macro model. This macro model, I'll go a little bit quickly explaining because there are many equations. So right after lunch, you will be very sleepy if I go equation by equation. So I'll just broadly explain what's really. It's here, basically, we're looking at the generation by generation. Because the two generations, one is the parents, children's generation. Retirement would happen, but we may not need to care about them. They cannot have children. Okay. So here the generation T, at time T, they are adult. Okay, these adult people will become retired at time T plus 1, but they will have children. If they have children, time T, these children will become, in time generation T plus 1, they will become adult. Okay, and then they will also have children. So this overlapping generation means the parents will have children, children will become parents will become children. This is a usual macroeconomic model. Complication here is that the marriage decision. Let's say 100% are unmarried. There is no overlapping. Because one generation is the end. Just all died as a retirement. And then there is no children born. This is the overlapping generation means that some people are got married and they produce the children. There is no immigration. So we don't care about immigration here. So we try to put something in the marriage decision. Okay, if your education matters and then your cost matters over the cost of family formation, here marriage and child care, that's important. And then also the in the whether you will get married or childbirth, it's this kind of decisions, especially the females' time allocation is very important. So this is structural model is basically the every individual live for 3 periods, childhood, adulthood, retirement, and then when they become adult, they decide whether to get married or not. I mean, how to make decision. This usually prime model is the maximizing their utility. In this case, expected utility. They will calculate if I get married, what kind of utility? If I'm not married, what would be utility? Okay. For married cases, the utility is higher. Then I will decide not to be married. So you need to maximize. And then once you get married, you need to allocate your time between your work and then child care and then the children education is important here. You need to put your time and your cost to make the children. Okay, so this diagram shows the decision. So each adult focus on the female's view is like this. Okay, I became now graduate. What they say, I'm 18 years old. I'm graduating. I finished my education, supported by parents, and then I need to make a decision, marriage decision. And to make the decision of marriage, I need to think about your expected utility. First of all, you need to think about your marriage cost. This is the opportunity cost is here. You need to spend some money, but also your time. So marriage cost or wedding is also very expensive in Korea. But especially also housing is here. When I get married, I should save a lot of money. I cannot go abroad for my pleasure for the next 10 years. I need to save my money to get married. I mean, something like that. This kind of decision should be made. Fertility decision, you may think, okay, if I get married, whether I have a children or not, it's the two-step decision. If I have fertility, once I direct have a child, I need to allocate my significant of my time to the child rearing and child education, and they will become accumulate their human capital, and they will get to the market, and then they will produce, and the economy will develop. Okay, I care about my children, so I want to educate them, and their wage will increase. And then, but in the time allocation, I need to also consider too is gender inequality. Gender inequality is as a female, I need worried about the gender inequality in child rearing and education. I don't know what kind of spouse are need that get married, and then this spouse may not spend any time in the child care, and then I need to take care of all the remaining time. So that's the significant one, and then I cannot really continue my work. This kind of decision and the gender inequality in the labor market. If I stay in the labor markets, in Korean labor markets, companies are not really providing the appropriate child care system and providing flexible work arrangement. So I may need to move to another lower quality job, working as a part-time, or from the beginning, I get a job and a certain part-time job rather than full-time job. And these kind of decisions they need to make. Okay. All kind of this kind of equations summarized as one equation. One equation here, okay, the adult aim to maximize expected lifetime utility. So that means your utility WT is the function of PT is the successful mating means that you are get married. Probability multiplied by when you are get married, this is your utility. The other part is 1 minus PT is the you are not married, and then your utility. This is expected. And then another plus term is the when you get educated and then you become adult, you got some kind of utility already coming from your education. So as you may consider this is the coming from the parents. And then here, the modeling here is not, we are not the first, but based on the other work. You need to spend this, your endowment to find out your spouse from the beginning. If you just stay without spending any your endowment for your marriage, you can keep them and then you get the utility. But otherwise, you may need to spend the lambda. Here, lambda is this utility term. Lambda is you need to spend your average human capital at the beginning to find out your spouse. You need to go to the certain place to find out your spouse. You cannot really keep staying at your job. Okay, and this is a certain functional form here. you need to, if you spend more and more effort, the probability will be higher. And this is okay. I'm sure it will be okay. This is for males. Okay, you can think about this effective utility, and then pretty much you can find out personal conditions. Okay, so what kind of probability you maximize? You can find out. Let's just go to the females. Okay, females case is the for the college educated women, their probability have another term is much higher. The cost is much higher. Also, it depending on the what, how many your educated males are available in the marriage markets, as I explained. So here, probability also determined not only by yourself, but also the environment. How many people in the society were educated in your region. This is another cosine term point. Okay. And then this is the first order females. Females, okay, all average probability of marriage or females. Okay. So this is the if you work on the structural macroeconomic model, nowadays you can ask the computer to solve this model and then provide the right structure of the model. They solve this one. How we solve this model? We will give the Korea's actual numbers, like the probability for of marriage for uneducated females 90%, educated females 60%, and this model try to give the parameters to match these actual numbers. That's what we are doing. Okay. And then we need to calculate the utility. Utility function is coming from the standard macroeconomic model, but some complications. Here, your utility is coming from not just your consumption. This M is married. This is the sons, and then this is the daughters. So you combine your utility from sons and daughters, and then here the N is the number, and then this education. So you are care about your child's quantity and quality. Here are some weight. So you can care about your how many children, but also multiplied by quality. Here, basically, we are making this kind of assumptions. Very highly educated, smart kid, maybe one child is equivalent to maybe 3 uneducated, not very smart children. Okay, you may think it's very absurd, but this is very well known. The progress about the child quantity and quality trade-off models. Okay.
May I ask why
Sure.
you don't use children like separating to son and daughter?
Because we need to calibrate the model. Currently, still there are some education gap between son and daughter, and then also labor market participation, as I shown, son and daughters are different. So we need some kind of parameters. So actually, the sons are better educated than daughters. Currently, still. So we need to try to incorporate the actual data. This is the married woman's time constraint. We normalize as the 1, and then this is allocated to the market production, and then the child rearing and the child education. Here, some kind of parameters, you may read this one. Okay, we need to spend some rearing time, let's say 2B, and then male will decide. Here, the father will decide, I will spend a certain amount of my time for child care. Then, obviously, less than half. And the remaining part will be taken care of by the females. So this we calibrate this based on Korean data. So actually, almost 1 to 3. So only small amount will be carried by the females. And then the child education. For child education, we are not really distinguish male and females. They all spend at the same time for child education, but there are some difference male sons and daughters. So this kind of all kind of small ones trying to put the Korean characteristics into the model. So this is a kind of budget constraint. I put here some social security and tax and government behavior because eventually we need to doing government policies, but we are not really get to some social security issues. Here, the saving rate changes has some impact on the economy. So income here important impact on the decision on the marriage and also the childbirth. Okay. So this is the unmarried household. Unmarried household is basically there is no child part. So they decide not to have any child. The test disappeared. And then they will allocate the total time to the market production. But we decide to put to the view. So it's roughly only 80% will be decided in the individual time allocation. Because we are not really putting any leisure decision here. So everything is either work in the workplace or at home, but no leisure. So we need to put some kind of leisure, but we cannot really make the model so complicated. That's unnecessary. So you could just decide that in the unmarried individuals, only 80% will put to their working at the workplace, and 20% at their region. Okay. So I'll go. This is the human capital accumulation. For the human capital, this parents will put certain things, and then they will learn from the parents. So if the parents is more educated, the children will become more educated. So this is the kind of we call the parents spillover. This will be intergenerational spillover here, and the government educational spending is also important. The terms are just very natural. They hire the capital and male and female labor, and then they produce government basically balance the budget here. So this is the aggregate labor market, aggregate production function. There are some total effect of productivity, this chronology, and this is the human capital and the work hour, and then how many people is calculated, and the capital from the saving. So, okay, this is the labor market output. There is the D here. D is the means the wage is the female's wage is lower. D is less than 1. So there is some discrimination currently. So on average, females the wage is the 69% of the males. We put some this double here to capture them. Okay, and then the model is basically solved in this way. Everyone is the maximizations, and then solve some probability, and so as I explained, expected utility maximization. So many things, and then this will be have some cross paths. We in the paper eventually will be the working paper. We will have some balanced cross paths. The model is solved in that way. Here, human capital is very important. If you don't educate your children, growth will be disappeared eventually. The human capital and saving capital all grow in the same rate. Okay, calibration means this procedure is using the actual data and then trying to fit the data. So I'll just show here what's the 2023 major variables. Basically, this is some mathematical model, but the outcome should basically match the actual data. So if we solve this model with all the parameters, I just explained the parameters here will come. I will not explain all the parameters based on the actual data and then some from literature. We want to match the marriage rate 0.69, and then marriage rate college education is 3, and then the non-college is 82, fertility is 0.72, per capita income 2.8, and then net domestic savings 7.7. Labor force participation with the things. And then here the college educated people's share was the 72%. But the ratio of college educated women is almost same as the college educated men. What I just a comparison, 99, what was happening? Marriage rate was much higher, especially the college educated women here. Staging rate is much higher, birth rate was much higher. And then here the share of women with the college educated people was only 30%, much lower. And then the ratio of college educated women was much smaller. So easy to find out the breast house. Okay. So now simulation. Simulation means that I want to give some shocks and then do some simulations based assuming that this is the right model. So okay, we want to see what will be the policy impact. because we have had a lot of discussions on government policy is basically two categories. One is some economic subsidy. Second is the basic promoting work and family balance, providing public child care, these things. It's very hard to capture all the policies, but basically we, based on the some discussions, we put some numbers like 25% decrease in child labor by the government support, 25% marriage cost, 20% some housing subsidy in Korea. Newly couples get the subsidized housing, and then some promoting gender equality and promoting gender equality in the labor markets at home, and then combining all together. So basically, I assume all kinds of things are happening in Korea now. At least these 5 things in Korea, but it started recently, so the effect may happen later. Okay, this is one by one. I'll explain a couple of things. Okay, let's say this is value is 2023 is the not actual value from the model. So the model generated these numbers, but exactly almost the same as the actual numbers. So model works to generate the actual numbers, and then I lower child rearing cost by 25%. Okay, some people say lower child rearing cost support the child rearing, then fertility will increase. What happened here? If you look at the fertility, yes, increase, but only from 0.72 to 0.84. If you believe this model, the impact is not huge. Why? Because there is no significant change in the marriage rate. Even lowering by child cost, they will not decide to get married. So here, marriage rate is also played a very important role. That's what I'm saying. If you, and then one, I not focus today, but if you increase fertility rate, your per capita output growth rate will decline. This is basically trade-off. Your GDP growth is almost depending on your potential growth. But now your fertility increase, you are spending more time into the fertility, then your labor participation rate decline, and then your growth rate will decline. Parents' education time is similar, so lower marriage cost. Now, lower marriage cost, then marriage rate will increase significantly. So now you increase marriage rate, then fertility will increase. No, not very much, up to the 0.84. Why? Only increase the marriage rate, but the childbirth is all depending on the other factors. Gender equality here, if you increase the gender equality in the labor, let's say in the child rearing, your number of children will increase, but your male's labor participation rate will decline, growth rate will decline. This kind of things. Okay, if we combine all together, what will happen? Now, simultaneous work. Your marriage rate will increase, and then also the number of childbirth will increase. So it's basically increase the fertility rate. So marriage rate will increase up to 0.8, and then fertility rate will increase 0.1, 0.2. So this could give some benchmark simulation. If you provide certain policies, one policy cannot solve this particular Korea's declining fertility issues. But if you combine in some policies giving subsidy, let me say, targeting at the cost of family formation, basically the marriage as well as child care, then your marriage rate will increase and childbirth will increase, and then fertility rate will increase. That's what I'm emphasizing here. And then if we go to the historical simulation is basically, okay, we want to reverse the Korea's economic development, social development. So let's say the educational attainment of females has not changed at the 1992 level. And compared the income, that's lower. And then gender inequality, more gender, education cost is lower. Then what has happened? Okay, because I emphasize the education was very important, and you wanna just change this number of the female college educated people, then childbirth will increase. Not really. Marriage rate will increase because this has have a higher marriage rate. But fertility rate, childbirth will determine on other factors like education cost, housing cost, all kind of income cost. So only just uneducated people, and then other factors are the same. So what happened to the economy is the fertility is the only 0.78. Per capita income declined to the 68%. Because the two, they have a lower education, and then their labor participation rate is lower. So per capita income is declined. Low productivity growth cannot really solve all the problems. Gender inequality is not solved. So if you combine all three together, less fertility will increase to 0.87, but it's not significant change in everything. But 0.87 is for Korea is important development. But here, if you also change the marriage and child rearing cost, because it has increased over time, 30 years. So decreased up to the 99 level. Now you're get to the certain numbers, actually close to the 99 numbers. 7. Marriage rate will increase to 0.93, and then their numbers are quite similar. And number of children increase to 0.14, the time 1.8. And you're slightly smaller, but up to the 1.3 compared to the 1.6. This is basically explained that there are some unexplained factors, but basically my point here is that fertility and marriage rate decline is the basically product of Korea's economic and social change, including the education improvement for females' education. So if Korea wants to really go back to the stage, you can do it, but per capita income will be only 28% of this time. So I'm saying it's the 99% per capita income level is the low educational attainment. We will not accept this. So we need to change this kind of policy initiative to be will be more important than go back to the the old times. So let me summarize my key findings. This time is passing. Now, key findings. The survival model basically explaining that confirming what the people's the guessing. Okay, the women's college education and housing costs, basically they are important factors, and the women's labor force participation, high child education costs actually lower the probability of the childbirth. High income and home ownerships are very important. And the simulation result shows that in Korea's case, improve the women's education and income, as well as the labor market participation rate, combined with the higher cost and marriage and child rearing, actually caused this change. And now effective policy, they improve the fertility rate, but not very significantly, because we could not go back to the 99, but up to the 1.2, like small. That's the case. So what are the limitations? And I think with some policy implications, my suggestion is to basically here some cultural context played an important role in interacting with certain policies, certain changes. For example, female education attainment increases the interacting with the existing social context, like culturally gender imbalance in the inequality in the at home and the workplace. But so these kind of things happen. So maybe the lower marriage and child rearing costs and promote gender equality at home and work is the right direction to improve the qualifications. And but the support of premarital qualification and non-marital child rearing is the culturally very difficult. It may be the one agenda for the Korean society. Some limitations in the model. If you are familiar with this model is not discuss anything about the marriage market. There's no marriage market. Basically, it's just the equilibrium, going back to the equilibrium, and then no bargaining between the male and females. Whether you have a more higher education and then you have more bargaining power, maybe or maybe not. They discuss complicated things, and then the only focus on the steady state outcomes. There are some changes over times, and some dynamic framework, maybe with the more heterogeneous individuals capture participation. What I'm saying here is that the next step is people may say, okay, what are the impact on the low income, low educated household if you implement certain policies? This we could not answer because we are not really divide the whole household by the income and education classes. For education classes, we just divided the college versus non-college, low income distribution, income class, low individual distribution. That's really hard to answer. Okay, so thank you very much. I will stop.